We previously wrote about fasting as preparation for a voyage with Mother Ayahuasca. Much more can be said about fasting. Remember, fasting for a voyage is not about losing weight, trimming your tummy, or looking or feeling good, although many people have reported these additional benefits. In many religious traditions, their prophets, seers, saints, or holy ones spend time out or away from others, on their own, in self-imposed isolation, whilst fasting from food and in some cases drink. In a contemporary context, this is analogous to an addict going into rehab to get clean, or drying out. Although there are probably a greater many holy ones out there in these modern times despite appearances, it is not beyond any of us to put ourselves into a relative state of grace regarding the body or shell we use on this plane of existence. It really only takes a few days to a week to get your body relatively well cleansed or prepared. We cannot talk about fasting without also considering addiction. In this modern age, there are many categories of addictions and addicts. And equally, there are as many types of addiction and rehabilitation clinics and centers as there are classifications of addicts, or for those who desire to be free of their pathological desires. As they say in the world of get-rich-quick schemes and plans, where there are problems, there is money, and if there are no problems, let's create some. The desire to be free of a desire is yet another desire. If you desire to be free of an addiction of any sort, you have just created another desire or addiction. The desire to be free of an addiction is another addiction. Most, if not all, pathological addictions at their core commence with a disconnect from the self at or from a relatively young age, and sometimes prior to a very young age, i.e. pre-birth or beyond. Fasting from the world is about desisting in your desires and desisting from thinking about desires, wants, needs, and all our pathological behaviors or addictions. If only for a while. Almost without exception, we all endlessly seek pleasure and seek to avoid pain. What if we could stop seeking and avoiding, if only for a while? What if we could be still, without desire, without seeking, without avoiding, if only for a while? What would happen then? If we can drop desire, drop the seeking and avoiding, we can drop the struggle and become free to be our true selves, free of desires and pathological addictions, then we can truly begin to enjoy life on this plane of existence as we are all meant to. In order to get at the core of any addiction and to clarify where it originally emanated from, a certain amount of agitation and emotional discomfort may be required. It requires profound bravery to face this original emanation. But we can prepare ourselves to a certain extent to face it. When you were born, you were not self-aware. Self-awareness happened to you along the way as you took on the social conditioning and perceptions of those around you about what and who you were, and other interpretations of what life is about and what was or is expected of you. Before this self-awareness occurred, you did not have a concept of being separated in or to the world. You attained and developed an egoic construct of mind. This egoic construct is the mask you present to the world as being you. But, like any mask, it is not you and is not even an accurate representation of the true you. Many of us have never taken off our masks to reveal our true selves, our true nature and power. We have worn these masks for so long that we have convinced ourselves that we are the masks, and therefore the masks become almost virtually impossible to remove. Thus, we resist the potential or don't even consider the possibility of removing the mask. Of course, these masks we all wear have been scarred and become battle-hardened over the years. So we try to repair and paper over the scars. Many layers have built up over the years, so the mask never completely disintegrates, so we never truly expose what lies behind the mask layers. The mask encases us as a prison wall would. Fasting from the world helps us begin to remove some of those layers which we have accumulated over the years. As we slowly detach from our physical, mental and emotional needs or desires, layers of our mask slowly begin to peel or fall away. As a simple example, if you don't eat solid food for 24 hours, come breakfast time, your mind may signal a thought that your body wants food. This is a conditioned default program, only to suggest that if there was food going, this would be a good time to consume it. But it is only a suggestion and nothing more. You may have to recognize it, but you cannot be forced to act upon it, as it is only a suggestion from the conditioned mind. After a short period of time, the mind will detach itself from the thought or suggestion of hunger or desire for food, and just go along with whatever happens to be going on in that moment. Later on in the day, what you might call lunchtime, the conditioned default program switches on again to suggest that if there was food going, this would be a good time to consume it. You may decide to hop to it and do what is suggested, or you may choose to just let it pass, as you cannot be forced to obey the mind's conditioned routines. Even at this early pointer stage, you are beginning to wear down the mind's conditioned response, routine, and program. But no doubt the mind will again suggest at about dinner time or tea time that if there was food going, this would be a good time to consume it. Once again, the choice is yours. Either you go with the program or you don't. After 3 to 5 days of this, the mind's conditioned routine or program becomes fainter and fainter until it is hardly noticeable. Your want, need, or desire for food slowly begins to dissipate. This is not to suggest that you refrain from drinking water, liquids, or taking soups, just that you refrain from eating solid food, most of which, in this modern era, are not that wholesome anyhow. Again, we carry out this exercise for the purpose of preparing our bodies to imbibe the sacred plant ayahuasca and to put our bodies, at least for a while, into a state of grace. After 3 to 4 days of fasting from solid food, our body begins to adjust and the craving we had for solid food begins to dissipate, and most toxins that may have been dissipated in our bodies from processed food and or from drugs or alcohol begins to disintegrate to a certain degree at least. Some toxins, if still remaining in the body, then Mother Ayahuasca may deem it necessary to help you complete the purge via vomiting, diarrhea, peeing, sweat, and or emotional releases in various other forms or ways. Toxins come in many forms. There are the obvious toxic residues in and from what we eat, drink, and consume. But there are also energies which get built up or accumulated through toxic lifestyles, experiences, incidences, traumas, and events. People report that their purges come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. For example, when they do physically expel, purge, and or vomit, they often see it as a very dark-looking substance, which they often see or perceive to be akin to a dark energy they are freeing themselves of, which in turn can unblock them on a physical, emotional, and or spiritual level, and which in turn unburdens them on many other different levels. Ayahuasca works on multiple and various levels, consciously, subconsciously, superconsciously, physically, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, and others, all at the same time. Thus, it can be an extreme and overwhelming experience for the participant. The egoic or conscious mind is an extremely fragile and temporary construct, which ultimately falls away upon death. On what we have termed as the psychobiochemical level, the DMT that becomes activated or is active in your brain after imbibing ayahuasca assists in switching off your conscious or egoic mind, albeit on a temporary basis, for between 4 to 8 hours, depending on conditions causing a little or temporary death. When this experience ends, your brain begins to reanimate and reorganize itself to make and form new electrical connections, driven without the interference of societal conditioning or programming. It is like a brain reboot, but a brain reboot with a completely new set of programs and way of operating, as opposed to electric shock therapy, for example, which provides a temporary clearance only to find the same old viruses and corrupt programs re-emerging. Obviously, if your conscious or egoic mind is going to get switched off for any period of time and knows it, then naturally it will be resistant. This is where, in my view, the headaches, sneezing, coughing, vomiting, purging, expelling, shitting, weeping, roaring, and shouting come in, to fight, to battle, struggle, and resist the surrender of the egoic mind. This is natural, as we also have built into us the seed of fight or flight for the sake of survival. This seed also provides with the innate ability to grow and to heal beyond anything we can imagine. Equally, as we oft forget, we have the ability to lay still and play dead. This perhaps is the mantra we should adopt when we work with or surrender to Mother Ayahuasca. To trust she will not devour us, but instead guide us to metamorphose into something more, and perhaps even something better. Each time you imbibe ayahuasca, it's a different experience. It will teach, show, guide, and or reveal different aspects of itself and yourself to you. When taken in the proper set and setting, you become ayahuasca and it becomes you. It will provide insights and clarity, some of which you may well remember on a conscious level, but it also downloads so much information to you on a sub or superconscious level that you may not be able to remember much of it initially. But rest assured, in time, Mother Ayahuasca will reveal herself to you when both you and she are ready. On another but yet important note to me, reviewing my journeys, voyages, and adventures with Mother Ayahuasca puts me in mind of my younger days, when part of my life revolved around sports, athletics, and fun. Three things in particular which have reoccurred to me are deep breathing, cold water, and bare feet. Of deep breathing. Back in the day, some coaches insisted upon a warm-up prior to training or prior to a game. Part of this warming up involved stretching to make your body and muscles supple and to breathe deeply for short periods of time in order to relax your body and switch off your thinking mind. To let your body take over and do the work without thinking, so to speak. As the years have gone by, my interest in sports has all but disappeared, but these recent adventures have brought me full circle and specifically back to doing deep breathing exercises. We won't get into any detail here or recommend any particular breathing exercises, as you can work this out for yourself, but just to say that deep breathing is so good for your body that it reoxygenates your blood to the extent that you can feel, in a very physical sense, a healing process going on within your body almost instantaneously. This is well worth taking a bit of time to research further. Of cold water. This part has never been recommended to me by coaches or trainers, but is just something that seems to have come to me and helped me heal from sports, injuries, and strains at a relatively phenomenal rate. Initially, it started after training with washing my feet in cold water to cool down, and after time, evolved into taking cold showers after training, and then evolved into taking a cold shower before training, as it seemed to wake my body system up, and then with another cold shower afterwards, it would cool me down and reduce muscle cramps. Bare feet. This is something as children we would do. Just remove our shoes and socks and walk barefoot in the fields and in streams to stalk our prey. Although it was a game back then, the barefoot thing has serendipitously resurfaced for me. As it transpires, it is something that turns out to be a fundamental basis for me to reconnect back to Mother Earth. So much so that just prior to my first ever voyaging with Mother Ayahuasca, a friend gave me the gift of a book on this very subject, in which the author has made some very remarkable discoveries, or should we say rediscoveries, about being barefoot in nature. Suffice to say, it is still a fun thing to do, and after which one cleans one's feet in cold running water, which does initially cause you to breathe deeply. Thus, it is almost a perfect and complete way to remove stress and invigorate the body and possibly to heal. There are tons of sources available for you to independently research these three subjects in particular, and to test for yourself and consider any science behind each. This we shall leave up to you. After all, we cannot be expected to do all the work for you, can we?